Hello, my name is Hanwoo, and today I will be talking about loops in Python. To start off, we need to know what loops are. Loops iterate over a sequence, or in other words, it repeats something over and over without having to copy and paste your code. Generally, there are two types of loops. There's first the for loop, which repeats something a set amount of times, and there's also the while loop, which repeats something until a condition is not met or is broken. The basics of a for loop involves using the phrase in range with parentheses. This signifies how many times the code will run. In this example, the variable x is used to track the number of times your code has been repeated. This value starts from 0 initially and stops running when the variable reaches the number. When I type for x in range, let's say 5, we can print out what the x will be by typing in printx. And what this code will do is it'll start counting from 0 up to 4. And the reason why it up to counts to 4 is because 5 is the maximum number, and when x reaches 5, this loop will stop, meaning that 5 will not be printed. Range can also specify when the variable starts, and where it ends, and the increment the variable should have each time. The first number inside the parentheses represents where the number will start. In this example, it starts from 2. The second number in the example shows when the loop will end. When the variable reaches 6, the loop will stop. The last number 3 represents how big x will increase each loop. To make this code more complicated, we can start adding more parameters into the range function. So to start, we can say it should start from 5 and count all the way up to 20. And because we want to include the number 20, we need to make it 1 higher, so 21. And the increment should be maybe 5. And this will print 5, 10, 15, and 20. And it increases by 5 each time, starting from 5, ending at 20, because it cannot go any higher than 21. The for loop can also print out lists. When you replace the range with the name of the list, the for loop will print out each item in the list. If I have a list called fruits, including apples, bananas, and cherries, I can print out each item in the loop by saying for x in range, not in range, fruits, print x. It'll print out each item. However, this is printing out the value x, meaning that x will be the items itself. So x, the first time it repeats will be apples, the second time will be bananas, and the third time will be cherries. X, in this case, will not be a number. Occasionally, you may need to use the functions break and pass in your projects. Break simply stops the current loop, and pass mainly prevents errors in the loop. There's an error you can get when your list is empty, and to fix this while not changing anything, you can simply put out the phrase pass inside the loop. This will remove that error. Let's say that in this example, I want x to count from 1 to 10. So we can first say for x in range from 1 to 10, so 11. We can print out x. But if we want to prevent it from counting any factor of, let's say, 7, and stop there, and we can say if x modulus 7, meaning this is calculating the remainder when x is divided by 7, is equal to 0, in which case it means when x is divisible by 7 and has no remainders, then the code should break, which stops the code. And it counts from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but it does not count 7 because the code breaks when it is 7. The most complex thing we will cover in this video is the nested loop. The nested loops are loops inside another loop. The first loop will repeat whatever is inside that loop. In other words, the code on the next indent will be repeated. If you have a loop on that next indent, that loop will start. When the second loop ends, the first loop will cause the second loop to start again. this process is repeated until the first loop is finished. What you're currently seeing is a nested loop. There is a for loop inside another for loop. What this code will do is it'll print out these values, and how it starts from is it starts from line 1, and line 1 makes lines 2 to 3 run 5 times. And each time the first loop is running, the second loop will run 3 times. So, for example, the first time A will be 0, and this lines 2 to 3 will run 3 times from 0 to 2. So the first 3 values you see here represent 0 being the first value for A, then B represents the second value. So 0, 0, then 0, 1, then 0, 2. Because B is the only factor that is increasing currently. Once lines 2 to 3 finish, it starts back from line 1, where A is now 1. Lines 2 to 3 start again, back from 0. So in this case it'll be 1, 0, 1, 1, and 1, 2. And this will happen again when A is now 2. 2, 0, 2, 1, and 2, 2. And this will happen until A reaches 5. It will not start printing out 5 because range 5 means that when A is equal to 5, the code will stop. So it ends at 4, 2. Lastly, there is the while loop. Overall, they are very simple. While loops will repeat as long as the condition it was assigned with is true. There are a couple of tricks that you can use while you are using the while loop. First is that when you want the while loop to repeat infinitely, then you can type in while true with a capital T, and this will repeat whatever is on the next indent until you run the command break. And what break does is it'll stop the current loop, which means it'll stop the while loop. Another thing you can do is you can add a variable. Maybe if you're writing a game, then we can say game state is equal to true, and we can replace this with game state. And while game state is true, meaning the game is still active, then we can keep running this code. So somewhere here you would have some game code, and then maybe you can check if the win condition is applied. So if win condition is met, then we can say game state is equal to false, which means that game state, after the entire code has finished, we'll go back to the while loop and see that game state is false. And what happens with while false is that this code will simply never run. Nothing will happen in this code. So when we have game state is false, our program will stop. And with that, I've covered the basics for loops. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments or email me directly.